Welcome to Out the Back Door, where your host Adrian Apostolatus talks about everything from your back door to the back fence and all the bits in between.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to the latest edition of Out the Back Door podcast. Today is a unique interview because we've got two Adrians here today, so people might get a little bit confused, but we've got Adrian 1 and Adrian 2, like B1, B2 if you like, but my guest is a long old-time school friend, actually, so we go way back. So Adrian Swain is a registered landscape architect and his business is Ecodesign. So he has a long list of qualifications that is longer than my arm, but I thought today really I've brought Adrian in to really focus on that landscape architecture and design process for people's backyards, because that comes up often for me, and I think it dovetails nicely into people's alfresco or pool spaces and things like that. So essentially, mate, thank you for coming and welcome.
No, all good. Thanks for having me.
No, my pleasure. So tell me a little bit about your background and experience. How did Ecodesign get born?
I was fortunate enough to leave school and my leaving reference from my Form Master was like, good luck with your landscape career. So I've always wanted to do landscape, and roundabout trip along the way with university and TAFE and different work experiences and things like that, and ended up just starting my own company, Ecodesign. So yeah, it took 13 years and then got registered as a landscape architect, and we've just clicked over 19 years in that company. So
wow.
Along the way we've sort of picked up tree consulting and landscape construction and pool building as well. It's a separate company, but we cover off a fair few bases.
No, I think that says, number one, how long you've been in business for. I think I tip my hat to you. But then also, as you said, arborist and your landscaping side of things, and recently in your pool building, I think, that says something about not only you, but also how you manage your team and your business. And I know how successful it is, but I think that says a lot. So good work on all that, mate.
Yeah,
so,
thanks, mate. Thanks.
But I thought I'd start our discussion today in terms of, in your experience over those 19 years, where do you see people getting stuck in terms of their design process when they're thinking about venturing out that back door? Where do people sort of lose it?
Look, for us, we need a really good base, and so we're often asking people about, do they have old building plans for the property, or a survey plan or recent survey plan of the property, because that's really the base of the design and our design process. So we usually try and have some sort of plan of the property, nothing to do with landscape, but just of the existing features when we first meet on site or before we start the discussion. So really, without those things in place, it's hard to actually commence in a meaningful way in terms of landscape design.
Often I ask similar questions. Often I find either people are really super organised and can put their fingers on exactly what you want in 20 seconds, or then the conversation stops and you see the head start spinning. You're asking for what?
Yes.
Why do you need that? Like, seriously? So what do you do in that case?
Well, I mean, it's good because the people that are interested, we do try and educate around the necessity of having those things in place, because, I guess we're all busy people and we want to be moving from A to B in the most efficient manner possible, and B being the end result design. And, if we have to go to council approvals or that sort of thing, I want to maximise the time that I spend with these people, and in that way they're going to get the maximum result from the money they spend with us, and having those things in place at that time maximises that, so gives the best result.
So then ultimately, if people don't have, if they've recently, say, purchased a new home and they've got these aspirations for their backyard, but in their handover from the solicitor or the contractor, so there's nothing in there, essentially starting with a site survey.
Site survey, Getting the surveyor in. At the moment there's a few weeks delay on that, like everyone's really busy, but and there's some dollars involved with getting that. But if I have to go out there with two of my guys to measure up a site and get some levels, or actually we need lots of levels, like if we're manipulating the site in any way with decks or retaining walls or pools or cabanas, that sort of thing, we need to have those levels in place on the plan. it's going to cost double for me to go and get those levels and measurements as it would to get a surveyor on board. So
for the average Joe, why are the levels so important for you?
Look, it gives us a level of certainty. So everything, look, a lot of things we do in design, especially around structures, they're either going to need some form of approval or be exempt from approval. And a lot of the limitations are around heights and distances off boundaries, distances off trees, that sort of thing. So it gives us a level of surety with measurements and heights and levels that we can design and construct on paper, not construct on ground, but construct a concept that can then be submitted to council for approvals or to a certifier for approvals, and it complies or it doesn't comply. So.
I find there's two types of clients from my point of view. When you're having those initial discussions, when people have got that design in their mind, or they've given you a Pinterest photo and they're saying, this is what I want, and then you bring up the approval process, which you've just mentioned, and people either get it or they don't. And in terms of they don't, it's surprising from my aspect, but I'm used to it, where, we're dealing with approvals and CDCs and legislation and everything all day, every day, but most people might only do this once or twice in their life. So often I'll get the feedback is, I'm just building a deck, or I'm just, and it's like, well, it is 100 square metres, so yes. But often, retaining wall, you got height limitations and things like that, which people aren't aware of. So I guess it's getting that correct guidance from you at the beginning. Otherwise, I find that people get led down the garden path, and she'll be right, and then that's where people get unstuck.
Like, often we'll get calls from people and say, look, I know what I want. Can you just give me a quote? And it's like, well, no. What are we quoting on? I can't quote on an idea in your head. I need to quote an idea on a piece of paper. It's like, if you want to build a house, you've got to have plans of the house that are going to be built. The builder follows those plans, and it's sometimes it's hard for people to see. Okay, they accept that for building a house or a block of units or a structure, but then when it comes to a garden or a landscape, it's hard for them to sometimes understand that you also need to have those plans in place, because we're talking about tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those plans form a contract document. They give clear expectations. The client knows what to expect for the money they're paying, and the contractor knows what they have to deliver and what's being expected of them. So, I guess a lot of these initial conversations are about educating people, and they go, oh, okay, once you start talking about tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars in landscape, we provide that assurity by giving a clear plan of what they're going to get. They can see on paper what they're going to get, and whoever quotes it, the contractor, they can know what they have to build and what they're going to be expected to build. So,
and it should make that process a lot smoother, take the hassle out of it. They're knowing budgets, and then that Pinterest photo that they started the conversation with you, they should still be able to see some form of that at the end because they've got that process. I guess it's flipping it around. If people can take the easy route, as with anything, don't have a process, but then you're probably not going to get to that photo at the end.
Exactly. There are lots of steps in between to get to that final finish. The concept is one part of it, and then getting down to the nitty gritty detail is that final finish, and that gets you that Pinterest photo. So, and it's not just us directing that process. It's getting the client engaged in that, and getting their input along the way almost consistently. So, as decisions are made and suggestions are made, they're inputting back, yes, I like that, or no, I don't. But it's also the consultant saying, look, putting a deck in this situation is going to be a big mistake, because
have you thought about this and this? Yeah,
it's going to rot in that spot. It doesn't get enough sun. It's too close to the ground. It's going to cost you heaps more to build. Yeah. Why don't we go with a different material that's going to be more suitable for that location? And and it's not just that photo finish. It's the 4, 5, 10 years down the track when it's still performing at its best. And it's even getting better as the plants grow on and it's settling in and maturing.
So obviously with that, you've got a process, which I have too, before you sort of, I guess when people make that initial contact with you, I guess people's expectations and reality is sometimes they think they can ring up today and you're pulling out a shovel tomorrow.
Yeah.
You and I know that doesn't happen.
No.
So, I mean, from your aspect, how long does that process take for you? I guess it would depend on the scope or the size of the job, but on average...
Oh, look, you know what? It's funny. This week I was looking some of the jobs that we're actually still working through concepts and getting more detail on now, we sort of started talking in November, December last year. So we're talking 6-7 months sort of thing. The thing is, it relies on both parties. Like, you know, people get busy with their lives.
Yeah.
There's delays. Maybe the surveyor takes 4 weeks or, that sort of thing. And so, and like sometimes we go, okay, can we meet you this week? No, our next available's in 3 weeks' time. And, they're busy people, we're busy people. And so just trying to get that flexibility for everyone sometimes extends the process. But a couple of months, I think, like if everything goes really well, like, 4 to 8 weeks, I suppose.
But I guess it's for you setting that expectation early and saying, well, we're not going to be out there tomorrow with a shovel. This is what we're going to go through, and making sure they understand what's coming up to avoid that disappointment.
Yeah.
I had down next, what do you think are the top couple of things that people need to really think about early when they're starting their process? Often people come to me and I ask them to give me some photos because it's good to see their inspiration, to know where they're coming from. But what else do you think is important in that starting process?
I guess the most important thing that, and it's the one thing that people least want to discuss, and it's their budget.
Yeah.
I think people with, and like you were saying before, some people come to you and they just get it and they know what's happening and they're all over it, and you say something once, they know what you're talking about. And same with budgets. Like, people will either come to you with a very realistic budget and they know what they're wanting to spend and what's reasonable to spend. But then some people go, no, I don't even know. And they know what they actually want to spend, but they don't actually want to talk about it.
Why is that an important conversation from your perspective?
Look, I mean, because I guess the three main things you're looking at is functionality, aesthetics, and cost in outcomes in design. We can make anything functional, but it's going to cost.
Yeah. You can do anything, really. Yeah. It's just a matter of how far you want to go with it. Yeah.
And we can make it really beautiful. Like, we can make a really blank brick wall beautiful, but it's going to have a cost, So, cost impacts on both the aesthetics and the functionality. And someone told me once you could build a bridge to the moon, or an engineer could build you a bridge to the moon, but it's going to cost the earth. So, we need to know that at the beginning, like, because we can steer the conversation. Like, you can see people walking down a gold-plated path, and you go, hang on, let's look at a different material because I know your budget's going to be this, and you've just spent double your budget on that item. So, like, we act as an independent consultant to the client. We try and help them navigate the path, so to speak, to achieve the best aesthetics, achieve the most function, but also try and tie it in with their budget so that it's achievable. Because there's no point. There is a sense of frustration in doing what we do. Like, we can come up with the best design, but if it's never actually going to get built, it's a waste of everyone's time, really. So we want to make sure that all the effort, all the time we spend actually comes to a resolution, and the people can actually build what we're looking to do.
Budget comes up with every consultant that I talk with, and I think that I've learnt that over the years is to politely get that on the table early. But from your perspective, and I know some of your jobs are massive, depending if you're on rural and acreage properties, I mean, you can be there for months or if not years. So obviously budgets would change in those aspects, but how do you think people should budget accurately or get a clear understanding in terms of when they're looking at these photos? If budget is so important, how should they address it?
Well, it's a good question. And I think that's where the conversation starts. Is like understanding the must-haves, the desirables, what's your list of things that you want in this landscape, and they might have pictures of 3 things. There's an outdoor shower, there's a swimming pool, and there's a cabana. These are non-negotiables. We've got to have them. And so then I guess the conversation comes around, and as we go through, sometimes the structures are, they're going to cost a minimum of whatever, and so really, like, we need people to say, well, look, I've got this much to spend, and then we can guide them as to whether that's realistic or not.
You can skin the cat in different ways. So like you were just saying, in terms of what are their must-haves, different building construction method, if they want that pool cabana, maybe you could look at X, Y, Z versus A, B, C and juggle the budget that way.
Look, the thing is too that it is sometimes very, sometimes people are quite unrealistic in that they're, say they've got $150,000, they want a flashy pool and plus. And really the 150 is going to go with a flashy pool, and it's not going to leave them very much left to do all the other things they want to do. And so we've got to pull back on the flashy pool. We're going to have a pool. It's not going to be as elaborate, and it's going to leave some money for some other things. But it is, it's getting that sweet spot, I suppose, where the number they've got in mind actually aligns to what they actually want, and then trying to navigate through that as well.
So sometimes people got to rob Peter to pay Paul in their design, and
look, this is one of the challenges too, I suppose, because often people will come to us before, and they've spoken to, say, a builder or usually it's builders actually, and builders are famous for underquoting budgets of landscape, because, and the way I've always seen it, and over the years, is that if a builder says you should budget $200,000 for landscape, that's probably about 150 out of the build budget that's going to go.
Right.
And look, it is changing a bit now, to a degree, but so we're still getting people come to us going, oh yeah, I've got $80,000 or $100,000 to spend on landscaping. Their site's really steep and sloping. It needs lots of retaining walls, and they want this and this and this, and it's never going to be enough. And sometimes it's frustrating because they've been sold a furphy at the early stages to say, well, you should allow the $100,000 for landscaping. It's just, especially on a 1,000 or 1,200 square metre block, it's just not possible.
So ultimately, to get around that, do you think people should start conversations with you earlier to get all those ducks and drakes lined up, and then they're not getting disappointed in the long run?
100%. Yeah. Look, I think definitely, I was trying to think of the conversation I had yesterday, but I think they're building with Clarendon, for instance. They've just called us up and said, oh, we need to get these things sorted out. We want to know about all the eventualities before we sign the contract.
Perfect.
And so they've got their house design sorted. They're looking for the landscape. They'll get that costed. They'll know then the full package of house and landscape, and then they can make their decision. They can even go to a lot of people actually go to the bank then and say, okay, well, will you mortgage that full amount? And then you can pay the landscape and pool off over 30 years. So, I think that is a very smart way. What I always tell people, because they often ask, when's the best time to start design? And the answer is as soon as possible. The more time that you can have to plan and design and work out the details, the better the outcome's going to be in the long term. Because a lot of people go, oh, I'm going to get a handover in 4 weeks.
Can you do it quickly? And that's where people always stumble. Yeah.
And you're going to get a very basic. You're going to get the depth is going to be challenged in the design. Sometimes some project we can work 12 months in design.
Yeah.
Going backwards and forwards. In terms of revisions, it starts at A. Some of them are ending up at S, T, U, V, W. There's 26 rounds of revisions going backwards and forwards on these plans, and that's not to get a small amount of detail. There's a significant amount of detail in these drawings. So, and even just time in meetings, time in discussions, talking about options. Because a lot of these things are designed in conversation or hand sketches before they get documented in CAD. So, there's a lot of time going through these details. So.
obviously you've got a bit of pool background too. Are you finding, is that in terms of trends, are people trying to put in as pools as part of their landscaping as well, or are they coming up more and more, or is it hit and miss with those type of things? Or
yeah, we and I think a lot of the reason why we pushed into pools about 6 years ago was people were coming to us and saying, "Well, we've just signed a $80,000 contract with a pool builder," and we'd say to them, "Okay, great, let's incorporate their plans into our plan. Can you send us the pool plan?" "Oh no, we don't have a plan." And we were like, "What? How can you sign $80,000 contract on a pool without a plan? How do you know what you're getting?" And they're like, "Oh,
doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense at all, right?"
Yeah.
So, and so you can imagine the outcome they're going to achieve
Yeah.
in that sort of situation. And so, like, I guess the converse of that too was that we were designing these landscapes with pools in it, and they were going off and being sold down the river, and they were getting an outcome that wasn't conducive to or consistent with the design. And so people are seeing that too. They're like, "Oh no, I've been saying we were trying to fight the plonk. You know, people are just plonking pools in the backyard and then trying to make everything else work around it."
Yeah.
And like, I reckon I get 10 calls a week. "Oh, we've just finished a pool. Can you help me sort out the landscaping?" Well, you know, there's only a limited amount we can do now that the
horse is
there.
bolted to a degree. Yeah.
You know, so, you know, like I think, people are seeing a lot of value, and our clients are seeing a lot of value in having, you know, the landscape architect design the pool and the landscape integrated, you know, getting the lighting right, plants right, materials right, layout right, you know, the choice of stone, location of pool fencing, you know, all of these things, positioning the pool box, like, you know, the you don't want to see. You know, how can we use some smarts to make this whole thing just an oasis?
But if you're going at 1,000,000 miles and it's coming in after, and I need this done in 4 weeks, it's just, she'll be right, throw it there, blah, blah, blah. And then it's not till you sit back and take a breath and you're out there enjoying a drink and going, "Well, how did that end up there? It's not what I had in mind. No one told me this," and you end up almost a bit frustrated. So, yeah.
Like the number of clients I speak to, like on a weekly basis, that are in exactly that situation. Like, "Oh, I wish we knew about this." And like one client the other day, he sacked the pool builder because, you know, like it was just. And I said, "Oh, where's your plan?" "Oh no, he's got a plan somewhere. I just haven't seen it." It's like, but how did you like?
Yeah.
For me, I can't understand how that occurs. Like without like a plan in place, you just,
Detail.
Yeah. Even something basic, you know, like it's sort of. But like a lot of times, it's let's make a sale, let's make that $80,000 sale, and
worry about the detail later.
Detail comes later.
No, flip it around, get the detail right.
Yep.
Because from my perspective, I think, I guess I set that, we've spoken about expectation, and I try and set that expectation early and outline we have a process, and a lot of other people don't have a process, don't give much detail, but ultimately I say, well, the reason why we do this is because, I mean, I can talk about this till the cows come home, as you can tell, but essentially people will get a better result at the end of the day, because we're, as you said, the detail comes at the beginning. Sure, changes will come. People might change their mind, or council might offer X, Y, and Z through the approval process, but essentially 99.9% of it is already done and dusted. So then they can sit back when the hammer and nails start being banged. They know what's going to happen. They're not going, "Well, you didn't tell me this and I didn't know that." And I think that's where I see a lot of people getting unstuck. But people, unfortunately, still go down that path, and she'll be right. Yeah.
No, I had a guy this week, and he's like, I said, "Oh, you know, have you got any plans?" He's like, "Oh, no." I said, "Oh, look, I mean, if you had it," then the question is like, you know, "How many quotes have you got already?" "Oh, and I've had a couple of guys come out and they said, you know, this, you know, this and that," and I went, "Oh, look, okay, look, you know, that's a good out for me." And I'm like, "Okay, well, you know, it sounds like you've already got a couple of quotes and you've got someone who's prepared to do it without a plan. You know, maybe you should just pursue that avenue, because this is the way we work. We need to have a plan in place, and you know, that's part of our process, and it protects me and it protects you. It ensures that you get a good outcome. You know, it ensures that we don't have a wrangle or a miscommunication. It's all there in black and white on a plan. So.
What about trends in terms of, I guess, trends can either work in your favour or against you, I think, in terms of architecture and building. But are you seeing anything come through at the moment in terms of what people are really focusing on, or?
Oh, look, a lot of our stuff hangs off the architecture, I suppose.
Right. So starting at the original house and then working
house.
out from there.
Yeah. So, like in new homes, a lot of the architectural trends are sort of like the modern, boxy, architectural articulation. So the modern, and then there's the French provincial, or the sort of European design, and then through to the Hamptons. I think they're the three main ones that seem to be coming out.
Hamptons is very popular. That's a phrase that pops up a lot at the moment.
Yeah. And I think there was a bit of Palm Springs. I had a lady once said, kind of Hamptons with some Palm Springs. I was like, oh my gosh. So, very different styles. But so I don't know. Like I guess it's not really trend so much. I think people are appreciating gardens and different foliages and that sort of thing.
So what, they're educating themselves about different plant styles or things like that? Or?
I think the urge to have turf everywhere or turf or grass everywhere, like it's people seeing that as low maintenance is switching off a bit. I think people are appreciating like a well-designed garden so that the plants just grow and it doesn't need a lot of care and maintenance through the year.
Right.
When you think about it, lawns are, you're mowing them every week or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a high intensity maintenance regime. Whereas if you get a nice, well-designed garden, you might have 3 or 4 times a year that things need to be done. So,
right.
I think people they're like, I'm seeing trends towards that. But look, the fire pit.
That comes up for me quite a bit.
Fire pit, cabana, pool. They're like, there seems to be a triangle. It's almost like the kitchen triangle between the sink and the fridge and the dishwasher sort of thing, or whatever. I think I'm not a kitchen designer, so. But yeah, it's like the pool and the cabana and the fire pit. That's
From my perspective, what you just mentioned there in terms of foliage and plants and whatnot, if I'm entering into designing my backyard, how much do I need to know about that type of stuff? Or in terms of, should I go down to the local nursery and get an idea of things, or?
Look, yes and no. It is nice to have people who know what they like and know what they don't like, and they don't have to know the names necessarily.
But give you a bit of a direction.
I guess people go, that plant that smells like this, or the leaf that's shaped like that, and usually we can pick it. I had a fun one the other day. It's like, that plant that smells like cat wee. I'm like,
right,
no,
I haven't come across that before.
I don't know that one. So, but it's like, I guess we're a horticultural background as well. So like usually I can pick what people like and don't like through their descriptions.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll just go and have pictures in place and go, look, I like this style of garden.
But it might be like a tropical setting, or
tropical or formal, box hedges, that sort of thing. So like it is good that people know. Sometimes it's even just as good to know what they don't like.
Yeah, true.
They're sometimes better at selling you what. No, I don't like that.
And you start ruling things out to get down to that. Yeah.
Like it'll be, I'll come away with the client saying no roses. It's with an exclamation point underlined. It's sometimes people are really definite about what they don't like. I don't think it's through our process we make suggestions. And in making suggestions, we sometimes give photographs and definitely like the botanical name and common name. And so often clients will go away and Google the different plants and what they look like, and they'll come back and go, yes, no, that sort of thing. And then we can try and craft. We had an interesting one where it was all a Japanese theme.
Wow.
And we had a long design process in this one, and then quite close to the end of the process, they turned around and said, "Oh no, we want a bit more tropical," and it was just like, "Oh,
it's polar opposites."
Yeah.
Did I see on one of your socials? Did you even have a Star Wars theme?
Yeah, and it was incidental
in a garden.
Actually. Yeah. Like it's funny actually because it was almost like it's funny because I never actually really liked that garden, to be honest. Like, I'm not a big fan of white pebbles and cactus. Like, I think it has its place, but I was sort of thinking, oh, what's going on here? What's going on? And like, it was a senior landscape architect that was looking after that design in our office, and so he had done most of the client interaction. And as it was coming through, I was seeing it getting built. I'm like, what are we doing white pebbles for? That's so not happening. And the client actually sourced this amazing sculpture of a TIE fighter, and he does like Star Wars, and
there was a Death Star fire pit or something, wasn't there? Or
no, it's a TIE fighter. It's a recycled steel TIE fighter.
That was it, yeah.
And all through the garden there's actually figurines, and it's funny because we were trying to find these. Like they're white boulders, like a white limestone boulder, and like serpentine white sort of, and it was like, we know what we're going to try and find, but we couldn't actually find them. And so these Star Wars figurines were placed where the boulders were going to go. So there's like stormtroopers and Darth Vader and R2D2 and all that sort of thing, all dotted through the garden where these boulders are supposed to go. And still haven't found those boulders, but like the figurines have found a place, and really cactusy kind of succulent type planting, and really quite sparse. So it actually ends up looking like a moonscape. And then when all these Star Wars figurines and this quite large TIE fighter sculpture sitting in there, it actually ended up being like a Star Wars garden. It's and it's funny. It's like, wow, this actually really works, and it all kind of made sense in the end. Where along the way I was like hugely hesitant.
But it all came together.
Together in the end. Yeah.
Well, there's a very niche business for you, mate, in terms of Star Wars gardens. But I mean, over the years, and I think rightfully and proudly so, you've shared a lot of awards that you've won. Why do you think you've won so many over the years? How have you got to that stage?
It's a constant battle, I think. It's a yearning, I think. Like early in the day, it was, we got a garden, we put it in, and you'd hope like hell, and then you wouldn't get something, and then, it's. But I think in terms of honing craft, it really does put things in focus, and there's so many. In terms of getting a garden photographed and then submitted to awards, there's. We're talking about half a decade, realistically, possibly, 4 to 7 years, I think, in preparation for that. So it is, it's a dedication to the craft and to your profession, I suppose, because, firstly, and it's coming back again to budget and that design process, so that, you're getting a client that has a budget that meets their brief. The brief gets delivered. But then that's not enough. It gets constructed, it then gets maintained, and 4 years later, when the garden's settled in, then you maybe 5 years, might get some photographs of the garden or the landscape, and and then hopefully through that time you've also maintained a good relationship with the client, and they gracefully allow you to enter that into some awards. And so, like all told, and once you take into, pre-construction, pre-design, there's up to 7 years sort of thing in that process. So it really is a challenge. And like we've got gardens and landscapes that are amazing, and for privacy reasons, clients prefer to leave not to allow us to enter into awards. And as crushing it is, you've got to respect people's privacy and know that, okay, well, they're the ones we've got on show, and they're the ones we've got awards for, but then we've got all these other ones in our back pocket that no one ever sees. It's I think it's a constant battle, not a battle, but I think it helps to focus and
patience too.
Patience and directing your energies into the right places, and So, but I think it's just a desire to do things properly. And to get recognised for doing it properly, because there are so many people that are just not so.
But I think that's testament to you in terms of what you said. I mean, doing it right, but I mean, if you're not going to get that end result to get those photos for 5 years, if you're not doing it right at the beginning, then you got Buckley's. So, and I think that's. I mean, I started the conversation with how long you've been in business for and what you do. So, no, I think you're definitely on the right path with things. So, mate, I've taken a lot of notes here, and in terms of some of the things I've taken away, I think. I mean, getting that design process in and starting that conversation with yourself or someone like you early in the piece to avoid that disappointment and getting the understanding of the budget, which comes up for me in every discussion. I liked the phrase that you mentioned in terms of fighting the plonk. Yeah. And I think that says a lot. But also one thing that I do, which is refreshing that someone else sort of uses too, is understanding the client's must-haves. And I think if you get that again in early, then you can work around it and the client will be happier and get a better result. So, mate, have I missed anything?
No, I think it's pretty good. Yeah, no, it's...
Perfect. Well, mate, listen, I can't thank you enough for making the time to share your experience and your thoughts with us today. No, thank you again. No, and, we'll share a beer after.
It sounds good, mate.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Adrian.